Some breaking news to get you here on HQ. We keep it buzzing with something that we probably did not see happening this morning.
The New York Jets announcing today that when it comes to Robert Saleh, he is out as the head coach. That coming after a 2-3 record, a team that had postseason admirations. Not looking like it so far. Saleh, of course, year 3? There at the helm, and is not looking good. That news, of course, from our insider, Jonathan Jones. The move comes after that 2-3 record. They lost the past 2 games, including an ugly 10-9 defeat to the Broncos at home in Week 4 in 3+ seasons. When it comes to the Big Apple, Saleh is 20-36 with no playoff appearances, and so much, of course, last year with the Rodgers getting injured. They thought it would be different this season, but it has not been looking good. Taking a look at their schedule, those games that I mentioned, when you see it there, the losses to the Niners, the Broncos, and then the Vikings. Up next, you got Week 6 against the Buffalo Bills. Within that division, the Steelers, Patriots, and Texans, a team still trying to get into the postseason, but of course now without their head coach, Robert Saleh, at the helm. For more on this, our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. And JJ, this is a shock. We heard rumblings of maybe things weren't going great in New York, but your thoughts on this breaking news this morning?
So the rumblings were absolutely true, obviously by evidence of the fact that the New York Jets making this move on Tuesday. They have a game on Monday against the Buffalo Bills. We have seen this play out time and again across the NFL. When a team has a game in London, they lose in embarrassing fashion, and then they come back and they fire their head coach. Did not anticipate it would be the Jets doing so at the start of Week 6 in the NFL season, but here we are. Look, the facts of the matter is Robert Saleh, 20-36 as the head coach there, never had a winning record, a winning season there, and obviously an underperforming, underachieving Jets team so far this season at 2-3. Here's what I can tell you based off my reporting and what sources have told me in the past week or so. Things were not good between Robert Saleh and the players with the New York Jets. That had been seen a little bit on the sideline, and then when you heard from players in post-game press conferences and midweek interviews at their lockers, they said that there weren't any issues. But this came up in my reporting this past week in sort of trying to uncover whether Davante Adams would ultimately land with the Jets or not. And one of the things that many folks were in Davante Adams' ear telling him was that things were not good between Robert Saleh and the players. And so because of that sort of second-hand information, we certainly didn't feel comfortable putting that out there, but that has been said a lot around this team. And now we are seeing that obviously play out in the form of the first head coach being axed this season. I can also report Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator of the team, is going to operate as the interim head coach. We can talk about him a little later. But word I'm getting out of that building, it is a surprise that this move was made at this point. You tell me it happens toward the end of the season, we get into December and the Jets are out of the playoff picture in an all-in year. No one is surprised by that. After the season, a disappointing loss in the final week of the year, no one is surprised by that. But Week 6, a 2-3 Jets team that a couple plays here or there, they could be 3-2 or 4-1. It is a bit of a surprise right now, and it certainly speaks to the relationships deteriorating in that building, certainly between Robert Saleh and the players.
JJ, I'm curious because, as you mentioned, it's Week 6, so this is a shock to all of us here, but we did see maybe the communication there with Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers early in training camp, even into the earlier games here. The defense that was, top 10 last year, not looking to par. Also others when it comes to that offensive line, not protecting their quarterback. Where does this blame kind of sit? Is it all on Saleh, or is this a combination of players and coaches as well?
Oh, surely it's not all on Robert Saleh, right? I mean, this is, look, I'm not willing to say this is an organizational failure 5 games into the year, right? The Jets could absolutely go along with Jeff Ulbrich, who could have been and may still be a head coaching candidate in a couple of months. They could rattle off some wins here, and then everyone's saying, wow, look at Gang Green and the new look New York Jets. But it starts at the top. Right, you have an owner in Woody Johnson who, for several years wasn't with the team because he was serving as an ambassador to the United Kingdom. He comes back, this team goes all in on Aaron Rodgers. They have a general manager in Joe Douglas in the final year of his contract. They clearly never figured out the backup quarterback situation. We saw that last year. They clearly picked the wrong quarterback a few years ago in the draft in Zach Wilson. They clearly shouldn't have traded for Hassan Reddick. In whatever form of miscommunication you want to say, whoever the fault it lies with, they don't have a top-tier pass rusher. And then, of course, they have injuries on both sides of the line. And then you have this new-look offensive line that not only are they not gelling, not only are they struggling with cadence, you have the coach questioning the 40-year-old quarterback who has used cadence as one of his greatest weapons. You paired the quarterback with his offensive coordinator of his choosing. You've been deferential to this quarterback for many years. There's fault all throughout that building, so no one should get away with saying that the Jets are 2-3 only and solely because of Robert Saleh. That's not fair at all. He didn't throw that pick six to Andrew Van Ginkel. He didn't throw that interception at the end of the game to Stephon Gilmore. While he's involved in the decision-making of so many of these players, you know, he didn't pick them all. And so, but we know this, when there are high expectations, especially in the New York market, when you are failing to live up to those expectations, and when you have ownership who, look, I'm telling you, Jeff Ulbrich is thought of very highly around the NFL. When you have ownership who says, man, this may be the thing that's holding us back, and maybe they're right, and maybe they're wrong, but they had to make a move going up against the Buffalo Bills, an AFC East opponent in Week 6. I'm not one to say the balance of the season was hanging there if they lost that game and slipped to 2-4. I'm not one of those, but it is a big game coming up, and clearly the Jets believe that they will be better off without Robert Saleh.
Speaking of the big game, a win, and they may be at the top of the division here at 3-3. Buffalo just 3-2. So we'll see how that game pans out in Week 6. Moving forward with this team, of course, as you mentioned there, Ulbrich, who's been a DC since his days in 2020. How do we view this Jets team moving forward? Are they still a postseason team? Can they still make that push with this roster intact?
Well, and let's flash up the schedule here, and we can kind of go through it. Certainly, this is a team that has been close. They should not have lost to the Denver Broncos at home 10-9 2 weeks ago. If you believe the Vikings are a better team, yeah, they probably are, and they've shown that they're the better team 5 straight times now. That Niners loss, look, the Niners looked better than them opening up, and I like the way that Aaron Rodgers was moving around up until he got banged up these last 2 weeks. But continue on. You have the Bills on Monday night. They're coming off of a difficult stretch these last 2 games. The Steelers, we know, are going to play every team tough and probably, with a defensive stop last week, just the other night, win against Dallas. The Patriots, who knows who's going to be starting at quarterback for them come Week 8, and it may even be Drake May as early as this week's. Then you have the Texans, the Cardinals, who can beat anybody on any given Sunday, and then you have a late bye. So I do understand right now, as you look at this schedule, wanting to, if you believe that Saleh is holding you back, if you believe that if we wait too long, this is going to be it. Also, look, if the Jets are going to be players for a potential asset, and I'm talking about if they trade for a player and that player is being told, hey, not so sure about the relationship between coach and locker room, then to change that relationship to get said player could be beneficial to the Jets. I'll say this, I poked around across the league earlier today on the potential Devontae Adams trade. I had heard from a couple interested parties that there was nothing new. They weren't expecting anything, and I would just say this, I would be surprised, certainly would be surprised if anyone got traded to the Jets today as this is going on. And so that's just where we're at right now with the New York Jets. They have a lot of things to figure out, but they obviously believe that this move right here can potentially right the ship for them in a very much an all-in season for Gang Green.
Well, as you know, Jonathan, it is New York, and anything is possible, as we see today here with Robert Saleh, no longer the head coach of the New York Jets. Appreciate your time, as always, JJ, with that breaking news. And take a look at the numbers when we talk about the past 2 seasons. 2-3 in 2023, and then 2024, the same result, identical points per game. Is this deja vu? Yeah, but in a bad way if you're Robert Saleh. But, of course, they get a chance to maybe restart their season with Jet Ulbrich taking over that interim head coaching role on Monday night. A big one against the Bills because they will be at the top of their division in that little sketchy AFC East. On the other side, we'll talk to one of our former Jets, Leger Douzable, and his reaction to his former team letting go of Robert Saleh right after this.